save some space for Risto. Hopefully he'll be joining us in just a moment. But let's just start. Many of the people here in the audience in Helsinki will definitely have grabbed their spots for your talk yesterday. But for the viewers on the live stream, not everyone will have seen it. So just give us a bit of a flavor of what the key takeaways were.
Sure. So good morning, everyone. And so yesterday we had this wonderful discussion as well, really around what makes an organization future ready. And we're sort of talking a little bit about the three key principles that I have learned over the years when we benchmark 7 different industries across 400 different companies, from tech to cars to bank to global travel. And if
We're just welcoming Risto, by the way. Thank you for joining us from the main stage. Howard was just giving us a bit of a summary of what he was talking about yesterday. So we'll just pick up with that, and then we'll bring you into the conversation shortly.
Sorry to crash the party.
I love people joining. The more, the merrier. So thank you.
It's great to have 2 keynote speakers with us in the studio at the same time. But Howard, just pick up on what you were saying.
Yeah, so what we've learned is if there is one key principle that any future-ready organization shares, is this idea about perform and transform. You do both at the same time. It's no longer trade-off, but really having that shared viewpoint, work backwards, so that every day, everything the organization do is basically delivering today and getting prepared at the same time. It comes all down to scaling up new capabilities.
Yeah, and that generated a lot of conversation online. We had a lot of questions about that yesterday. One fact that I think is really interesting, keynote speakers learning from each other. Howard, you were actually taking some screenshots of Risto's talk that he was doing on the main stage. Tell us what intrigued you.
Well, what intrigues me about your speech is this idea, despite everything is changing, you remind us to pay attention to what is not changing, or trends that will stay with us for a long while. Because I think there are so much noise around us, and you cannot build a business just asking what is changing. You've got to identify what kind of change and its trajectory is relatively stable. So demographic trend that you point out is like, wow, how come this is not the core discussion on every single board meetings? And so I took pictures, I take note. What a nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Risto. Yeah, so again, not all of our viewers on the live stream will have seen your talk, but you shared a lot of your story from kind of being at Nokia to founding security companies here in Sweden and how you envisage preparing for the future. I want to ask you both a little bit about leadership in terms of preparing for the future, because we all know we're living in very volatile times. What kind of leadership style do you think is most important right now? Let's start with you, Risto.
Well, in volatile times, fear is the biggest enemy. People are worried of their own future. They are worried that they are not learning anymore. They won't learn the next technology. And part of fear is that the leadership is isolated. They don't get to hear what people are concerned about. So it's all about culture. I like to say that no news is bad news. Bad news is good news.
Why is bad news good news?
Because then you learn. If you don't hear the bad news, you know that they are there. You just don't know what they are. People are afraid to come to you. And then you're not able to observe because you don't have data. You don't have access to data. So focusing on the culture, instilling a culture of being able to talk about the real topics. As we say in Finnish, we put the cat on the table.
Yeah, the cat on the table. We usually say cards on the table in British English. Howard, would you have a similar perspective, or what do you think the key leadership traits are now in 2025?
It really is interesting, right? Because what Ristos, you describe is, information needs to surface up. And for middle manager, is this idea, bad news needs to transfer across laterally. It's going up and horizontally. Because when I'm looking at future-ready organization, not only they would talk about success, not only they would talk about failure, doing really good after-action review, but they would capture that, document them, and make it permission-free to share across. So yesterday, we kind of had a little example about Booking.com on how every experiment, ads, features, campaign, they would lock into a centralized system. And so the success and failure from a senior vice president to a junior engineers, everyone get to see. And I think that is the foundation of a learning organization. And with all the AI, you could even analyze key success or key failure pattern. So I think these are human foundation to create that safe environment to become a learning organization in the age of AI.
We are getting some questions in on this, so I'm just going to jump into some of the audience comments. This one says, if you're in a middle or high management role in a traditional company, is there anything you can do to help and become more future ready? Find a new employer, ? I would have said traditional companies are actually quite a good place to be if you're in a legacy brand rather than an unpredictable new industry. But what are your thoughts on that, both of you? Let's start with Risto.
Well, finding a new employer is also one way of helping the old employer. If when you leave, you explain why you are leaving, maybe that will help them to develop. But you are definitely doing yourself a favor if you feel suffocated in your current job, in your current company. Go somewhere where you feel that you are learning, you are evolving, you are improving yourself. That makes you much more productive as well, much more successful and motivated.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to culture. And if I think about all the entrepreneurs that I meet probably some hundreds of entrepreneurs every year seeking funding. And how do I pick the best ones? If I think of the unicorn founders that I have supported.
Of which there are many.
I've been very lucky. But the one thing they do differently is that they all exercise this observe, think, act. But they do it very rapidly. And in most traditional companies, if it's done at all, it moves very slowly. But the best entrepreneurs, they have in their DNA of sort of cranking that shaft very, very rapidly.
Howard, would you agree? You talk a lot about planning, but Risto's saying there's also a need for being rapid to move on in your own career and develop organizations.
Yeah, and I'll put myself in the shoes of that question, right? As a middle manager. One way of thinking about it is, I'm just doing a dead-end job. It's not very motivational. The other way is, okay, the current situation kind of sucky, but I'm going to turn it into a learning field for me to build up a +1. That is your current job. The existing one is your current job, your role, your mastery, whatever. And use the current situation as a way to train your +1 skills. So yesterday we took a look at a junior engineers who work in a factory ground. And just for curiosity, he learned about augmented technologies and use his current dead-end job as a playing ground to master new skill. And I think single skill these days is doomed because of everything expert system by AI. But if you're a lawyer, but you can also talk about consumer psychology and navigate GDPR for campaign, then as a lawyer, as a legal counsel, oh my God, invaluable. And headhunter would line up. So as a middle manager, there still be realms of control. You could make yourself so valuable. So that would be my answer to that question.
We've got another question here. What are the signs for identifying if an organization is future ready or not? Risto.
You go first.
What should it feel like within the company?
It feels like this cycle moves rapidly. It feels like you are being both successful and failing at a rapid pace. It feels like it's quite okay to say that, hey, we failed here, let's try it differently. And there's no negativity associated with that. Of course, you see it in the results as well. So the company is going somewhere, there's a clear direction, we are making progress, we are measuring our progress. Many startups have this the right way with absolute focus in one thing. In larger companies, you typically get defocused and your attention gets fragmented. and you have so much legacy, you have so much friction. So a good company tries to minimize the friction, tries to improve the focus. It communicates very clearly what is important, what is not important.
I just want to touch on that in the context of startups. Nokia, and then sort of after Nokia, has been very much credited with helping to boost the startup system here in Helsinki, because a lot of talented people have gone on to found startups, some of which you've invested in. I'm wondering how many Nokonians there are in the security companies you're working with now, and what they bring to the business.
Well, Nokia's impact on sort of cycling people through that university of being in one of the largest companies in the world at the top of its own game, it's a unique opportunity. But the same applies to, let's say, Supercell in the gaming industry in Finland, or even F-Secure. I calculated that probably over 10,000 people have migrated through our employment. And they have learned about data security, about cybersecurity, and many of them have founded new companies. And I have invested in some of them. And that's one function for any company, and we need to be proud of it. We are proud of the people who work for us for 35 years, but I'm equally proud of people who work only for 5 years and then they go and set up their own business.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about developing an organizational culture that allows people to grow, to be honest, and to leave if it's not right for them.
And developing people.
Yeah. Howard, any final closing words for you before we bring on our next guests?
Well, I would say everything Risto's described, if done well, eventually showed up in financial statement. And this is where we track company on companies that are future ready. How does it look like internally? You described. Externally, you see a company is able to managing near-term financial performance, and meanwhile you see them literally scaling up new business model. They are generating lots of healthy cash flow and not a lot of debt. Meanwhile, aggressively investing in R&D, showing up in the financial statement. So empirically, you could literally see that, and they showed up in the financial market eventually.
That's what everyone's hoping for. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Please give it up for our keynote speakers, Howard and Risto, joining us here in the HSBC studio.